Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Charlene Aaron. Another major earthquake has struck Nepal less than 3 weeks after a quake killed more than 8,100 people. This time, the epicenter near China's border. Dozens more are believed dead and about 1,000 are known injured at this time. Dale Hurd has the story.
This lawmaker was addressing Parliament in the afternoon when the camera started to shake. Terrified lawmakers fled the auditorium. The magnitude 7.3 quake hit a remote region near the Chinese border between the capital of Kathmandu and Mount Everest. This man said, "This was a jolt just like the big one last month, though it was not that long. I was very scared. I thought anything can happen to me." The government says several buildings collapsed in an isolated town that has become a hub for humanitarian aid after the first quake. A rescue team has been searching through the wreckage of the town. The death toll from the first quake over 2 weeks ago is now more than 8,100 people and still climbing. It also injured almost 18,000, and it flattened mountain villages and destroyed buildings. At 7.8 on the Richter scale, it was Nepal's worst recorded earthquake since 1934, and there have been more than 150 aftershocks. Today's 7.3 quake was 2 miles deeper in the earth, making it not as strong. It was followed by at least 6 strong aftershocks. Aid agencies were struggling to get reports on conditions from outside the capital. CBN Disaster Relief has been on the scene since the first quake, providing food, aid, medical teams, and camps to help care for victims. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Communities from South Dakota to Texas are evaluating the devastation and looking for survivors after tornadoes swept through. At least 5 people were killed in small communities in Texas and Arkansas.
Just mass destruction. You couldn't really see anything. It was raining. We could hear people hollering for help.
It's unreal. I mean, I grew up here. This is my hometown, and it's devastated.
The victims included a young couple who died trying to shield their daughter from the storm. Michael and Melissa Mooneyhan died instantly when a powerful storm ripped through their mobile home park in Nashville, Arkansas. Amazingly, the couple's 1-year-old daughter survived. In Van, Texas, a tornado wiped out much of the town. Nearly 120 homes were destroyed or damaged, forcing dozens to spend the night in shelters. Operation Blessing is on the ground in Van. Volunteers with Operation Blessing will be assisting with cleanup. Operation Blessing is also partnering with churches there to provide supply kits, tarps, and other materials. New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady is appealing the NFL's punishment for the cheating scandal before the Super Bowl. The league suspended Brady for 4 games and fined the Patriots $1 million for deflating footballs in the AFC Championship game. The NFL also took away 2 draft picks from the Super Bowl champs. An NFL investigator says it was more probable than not that the Patriots broke the rules and that Brady knew about it. Brady's agent, quote, says, quote, "The discipline is ridiculous and has no legitimate basis." Well, the U.S. State Department gave nearly blanket approval to hundreds of overseas requests from Bill Clinton while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. A new report from the Associated Press shows that Bill Clinton's requests for lucrative speaking engagements in other countries were granted very quickly, and the Clintons became very wealthy, making millions of dollars from those speeches. One speech to the multinational bank Barclays is drawing special scrutiny. The State Department approved it while the U.S. Justice Department was investigating Barclays. Just months later, the bank agreed to pay nearly $300 million in penalties for violating sanctions against Iran, Cuba, Sudan, and Libya. A new bill by the House Republicans would require that doctors performing late-term abortions to help those unborn babies survive. The legislation requires that if the baby seems capable of surviving outside the womb, a second neonatal doctor must be present to provide care and rush the baby to a hospital. The provisions are part of a broader bill criminalizing most abortions starting at the 20th week of pregnancy. Doctors who violate the law could be subject to fines and up to 5 years in prison. The House debates the bill this Wednesday. Well, police officers protecting a controversial Prophet Muhammad cartoon contest in Texas say they didn't know about an FBI memo warning that one of the attackers might show up at the event. But they say that wouldn't have changed their response. Garland's police chief says officers weren't aware about the memo that the memo was sent only hours before the May 3rd shooting. An officer who sits on the local terrorism task force received the information via email, but didn't see it until afterwards. Simpson and another gunman were shot and killed when they showed up and opened fire outside the event. Well, is a Christian holocaust happening in the Middle East? Author Johnny Moore says so. In his book, Defying ISIS, Moore says the global church can't afford to remain silent. CBN's George Thomas recently spoke with him about the terrorist threat and how the church can defeat its perverted ideology.
You asked the question in your book, has a Christian holocaust begun? And your answer is what?
I believe that ISIS would kill 6 million Christians if they had the opportunity to, and they're just killing all that they can. And in fact, by the way, that's not just my opinion. I mean, the United Nations has now said that ISIS is guilty of 3 things: war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. And the only people that believe that ISIS wouldn't kill every single Christian in that part of the world and in other parts of the world where they exercise influence are some members of Congress that aren't paying enough attention.
Most people don't know this, but as you mentioned, ISIS has declared war on Christians, labeling them enemy number 1. Help our viewers understand, what have Christians done or are doing right now to garner this hate from ISIS?
They're doing nothing but loving their neighbors. I mean, that literally is the reputation of the Christian community in the Middle East, and has been the reputation of the Christian community for centuries. That, by the way, is why there's been a thriving Christian community in countries like Iraq and Syria for nearly 2,000 years. It's just that ISIS is a new type of threat. And a lot of people say, well, ISIS, they're not particularly targeting Christians. They're just killing anybody in their path. And it's true, by the way. They've killed more Muslims than anyone else. But it is also true that they take particular joy in a Christian life lost. And if you question it, all you have to do is go to the ISIS magazine in October. The front page of the ISIS magazine was St. Peter's Square with an ISIS flag superimposed atop the obelisk in the center of St. Peter's Square. Every single time Baghdadi has spoken or written a statement, the leader of ISIS, he says that they're going to march all the way to Rome so they can defeat the Crusader armies. The video of the beheading of the Copts and of the Ethiopians, the execution of the Ethiopians, was a message written in blood to the nation of the cross. So ISIS has their aim to root out a 2,000-year-old Christian community from the Middle East. And when they're done with that, they're going to go place to place. And they're not just displacing and trafficking and killing people. They're trying to eliminate their entire history. And this is why it's genocide. They're breaking down their churches, destroying their artifacts and manuscripts. ISIS aims to make a Christless world, a world without a single Christian. The fact is, ISIS now controls a contiguous piece of land larger than the United Kingdom between Iraq and Syria. They, in effect, control all of Libya. They, in effect, control the whole northeast of Nigeria. They, in effect, control Somalia. They have control over parts of Egypt and parts of Kenya. I mean, this is a growing terrorist threat, and in the crosshairs is Christianity. And because the world isn't paying enough attention, it's getting worse and worse. I mean, just stop and think for a second. Just a few years ago, we only had one failed nation in the world, and it was Somalia. Iraq and Afghanistan even were going in a positive direction. Now, Somalia is a failed state. Yemen's a failed state. Iraq and Afghanistan are going in the wrong direction. The whole northeast of Nigeria is under the control of Boko Haram. We would have lost Mali if it wasn't for the French. And it's the same threat from the same group of agitators. And it's a very, very, very small minority of Muslims. It certainly doesn't represent the vast, vast majority of Muslims around the world. But it's a religion of 1 billion people, and 1% is a lot of people. This is the time that every single time the church doors are open, we need to pray for these people. And in fact, we need to pray a specific prayer. It's the prayer Paul told us to pray to the church at Thessalonica. Pray that we might be delivered from wicked and evil men.
Johnny Moore had a lot more to say, from ISIS in the U.S. to how we should be fighting the jihadi army. And you can see the full interview at cbnnews.com. The Senate is calling on President Obama to secure the release of American pastor Saeed Abedini and other Americans held by the Iranian regime. The body has unanimously passed a resolution to that effect. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said Saeed was imprisoned simply for trying to start an orphanage, and spoke of the abuse the pastor has suffered in prison.
Beaten, denied access to medical care, and locked away in solitary confinement. That's apparently how the Iranian regime deals with those who dare to show love and compassion to others. I think we can all agree that at the very least, the American government should not be rewarding Iran for its disgraceful human rights abuses, that we should not be granting Iran access to the funding it desires to further its nuclear weapons program and terrorist proxies while this exploitation continues.
The resolution was sponsored by Idaho Senator James Risch of Idaho, the home state of Saeed and his wife Naghmeh. Well, many Americans believe the U.S. should make a deal with Iran to stop its nuclear program. But a new poll shows that most don't believe the Islamic Republic will live up to its end of the bargain. A preliminary agreement requires Iran to allow inspections at its nuclear facilities, ship plutonium out of the country, and shut down nearly half of its centrifuges. The AP GFK poll shows about half of Americans say they approve of making a deal with Iran, but nearly 70% say they're not confident Iran will abide by those key points. And 57% of Americans disapprove of how President Obama is handling the issue. Coming up, sharing God's love with children in a communist country. We'll show you where Superbook is touching hearts and changing lives right after this. Raul Castro says he's so impressed with Pope Francis, he might rejoin the Catholic Church. The Cuban president met with the Pope at the Vatican for an hour on Sunday. Afterwards, Castro told reporters if the Pope keeps talking like he does, quote, sooner or later, I will start praying again and return to the Catholic Church. He added, that's no joke. Raul and his brother Fidel have ruled Cuba with an iron fist for more than 50 years. Pope Francis played a major role in helping the U.S. and Cuba start restoring relations. He plans to visit the island nation in September. CBN's animated program Superbook is sharing the stories of the Bible in 75 countries around the world. And we've just added a new country to that list, Cuba. Take a look.
Superbook is going viral in Cuba.
Se emociona mucho. Decía que han sanado.
Over 400 churches screen episodes in Sunday school classes and Superbook clubs. The Catholic Church is using Superbook to teach children about the Bible.
This job was done by children aged 4 and 11 years of age, inspired by the stories in Superbook. So we launched some contests. The first was for drawing, and this one is to present their favorite story in an innovative way. What you see here today is their representation of Superbook stories.
Superbook Club leaders issue challenges such as bring a friend next week or watch an episode with your parents. Children who complete all the challenges win a Superbook DVD. They share episodes with friends and relatives. As a result, all across this communist country, young people are excited about the Bible stories and biblical values they're learning.
Our ministry reaches a lot of denominations, and a lot of teachers come to our office from other denominations to get material. Lately, the materials they are looking for are the DVDs of Superbook. They're being blessed and saying we are a channel of blessings to other denominations.
Each episode ends with a song of salvation.
Cristo moriste en una cruz, resucitaste con poder, perdona mis pecados.
Now children across the island of Cuba are singing about faith in Jesus Christ.
Beautiful. And a special thanks to CBN partners for making this possible. We couldn't do it without you. And you can find out all the latest information about CBN's ongoing Superbook projects by logging on to cbn.com/superbook. Up next, the music of hope, how this recycled orchestra is bringing new life to a hopeless, dirty town. The young musicians in our next story have performed around the world. They've even met European royalty, yet they live in a garbage dump in South America. Their secret? A visionary director who has taught them to turn trash into treasure. Carolina Martinez brings us the amazing story of Paraguay's Recycle Orchestra.
Cadeira, on the outskirts of Asunción in Paraguay, is a community formed around the landfill. Most people here make their living by selling plastic bottles or anything they can recycle from garbage. There is trash everywhere, and poverty and lack of education are a bad combination for the future of its inhabitants. Mainly children and young people who are prone to delinquency and drugs. But for the past 6 years, a light of hope has been shining in Cateura through music, and this is how it sounds. This is the Recycle Orchestra. It's got that name because all the instruments these kids play are made with materials found in the trash. Old water pipes become saxophones. Forks, knives, spoons, and coins become the keys. Cans and bake trays are used to make violins, and percussion drums are made with X-rays and wooden pallets or trash cans. It all started with an idea of an environmental technician and music teacher to take children out of the streets and out of the landfill. Fabio Chavez, who used to be the choir master of his church, directs this innovative project.
This is a social project that uses music as a catalyst. We are working intensively with many families and many children. We propose a life change projected into the future. This is a mission. I feel God's presence. I believe things happen according to His plans.
This mission was also possible thanks to the help of a trash picker, now turned into a luthier, who was from the beginning in charge of finding the materials to manufacture the musical instruments.
Garbage is not garbage. If you have creative ideas, you can do anything with garbage.
I think we have to be grateful for the gifts we have received. And we must be responsible, because those gifts should serve others too. It's like what the Bible says. You can't hide a light under the table. The light has to be where it can illuminate everyone.
And the orchestra is illuminating Cateura. Until a couple of years ago, no one had ever heard of this place. But all that changed thanks to the trailer of a documentary film that is now being released, Landfill Harmonic. In recent years, the Recycle Orchestra has been invited to perform concerts worldwide. It has received awards from the Royal Crowns of the Netherlands and Spain. Fabio Chavez and the children of Cateura have given lectures at the famous TED conferences, and they are inspiring millions.
Having nothing is not an excuse for doing nothing. And what we're doing is an example of that. I realize that I have nothing to envy because everything happens for a reason, and I know this is all God's work.
Andres is 20 years old and has been in the orchestra since he was 17. He has traveled to more than 20 countries for the concerts, but he dreams of staying in Cateura the rest of his life to transform it and make it a model community.
Traveling around the world opens your mind and makes you think, why can't our country be like that? Why can't our community be like that? Some people are born with everything, others are not, but everyone has to make progress in their own way. This is ours, with music, with recycling. Maybe we are changing part of our society and the mentality of our own people.
In slums like Cateura, even houses are made from recycled garbage. A normal violin would cost more than a house, but here the impossible becomes possible. And the music that comes from recycled instruments is not only giving hope to the children of this community in Paraguay, but also around the world. Following Paraguay's example, in 2014 a recycle orchestra was created in Spain, and it already has 50 children that were at risk of social exclusion. This is the first of several projects that are being inspired by Cateura. Thanks to their hard work and the concerts these kids give, They were able to buy a property where they are now building the largest conservatory in the area, with 20 classrooms to accommodate the 200 children that already attend the music school, and an amphitheater for 300 people. It would also function as a community center, with free crafts classes for all the residents of Cateura. And they are also providing scholarships so all the students have the opportunity to go to college.
The solution is not to run away from a place. The solution is to change the place. You have to have projects first, and then resources will come. It's ideas that change the world.
In Cateura, Paraguay, Carolina Martinez for CBN News.
This past Saturday, Regent University celebrated a milestone. It was just one of many highlights during Regent's 35th commencement. Let's take a look.
Oral, Luke, Beeson, Heidi, Renee, Frederick, Charmaine, Siobhan.
This past weekend, family and friends gathered at Regent University to recognize the class of 2015 from Regent's 7 graduate schools and undergraduate program. Dr. Pat Robertson, founder and chancellor of Regent, presided over the ceremony.
So all I can say is it is a great day to be part of Regent University, and this is going to be a tremendous graduation. Congratulations to all of you.
It featured Dr. Jay Sekulow as the keynote speaker. He's the chief counsel of the American Center for Law and Justice.
Let me encourage you today to be flexible, to be molten, so that God can create in you the unique work that only you have been created to do.
Also on hand was United States Congressman and Regent alumni Scott Ridgell.
I'm so grateful for what I learned here and the value of servant leadership, and that civility is not weakness, and that we can love our neighbor and fight for our country.
As graduates received their degrees, the university reached a milestone. Regent celebrated its 20,000th graduate.
Wow. Well, that's it for now on CBN NewsWatch, and you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com and on Facebook and Twitter. We hope you join us next time. Have a great day. God bless.